so you all know, so your faces are not captured unless you ask a question. But I need to orient for this recording. Today is April the 13th. It's the 13th, yeah, Easter Monday. And we're going to talk a little bit about working with binds today. But I find that the bind is one of the most common patterns that people have, and it can lead to a feeling of feeling stuck. The stuck place can show up anywhere. It can show up in, well, thank you, Amy, for saying that. I'm glad this has been a blessing for you because I like to hear how it's been helpful. Um, but the stuck place can happen at any time, and not in a time like this with the pandemic. It can, so I created a little PowerPoint for you, and we can discuss also, and I want to make sure I tell you the story before we complete but in about 20 minutes. So, all right, so I'm just going to share my screen. Hold on a second. Slideshow. So I created this morning. I pretty much knew that I wanted to share with you working with the bind. So this is something that we work a lot with in the pre-perinatal realm. And in my training, I've decided to introduce it in the first module simply because when we're working with a preconception even, often when there is a persistent feeling of stuckness in someone's life, it can have a connection to the ancestors or to our parents. It can be bigger than ourselves. And quite often when someone has a bind in their life that's chronic, it can show up in health conditions that are autonomic, like lupus or other autoimmune disorders and things. And it can show up in the somatic experiencing world. We often talk about it as global high intense activation. And it has a lot of sensation that can go with it, a lot of pattern. I'm not going to teach that today. I just wanted to lay out a little bit about what it is and give you some ways of working with it. And I'm going to put up this handout in my online module. I might put the recording up also in our Facebook. I have a new Facebook group I'm going to invite everybody to. I have some plans for that group also to be nourishing and nurturing for new moms and pregnant moms. So just to define the bind, so it's any time when two things are happening at once, where each pathway feels overwhelming, undoable, or frightening, or it just doesn't feel right. Like if I can't go, I can't stay, and no decision feels viable or good. It doesn't feel clear. Often this can show up as confusion. Like one of my moms, when I worked with her birth, said she went for a C-section after trying so hard for a home birth. She said it felt so right, but so wrong. And so that's an example, like it's confusing, what? So I'm just going to slow the pace a little because when we get into these binds, things speed up. We feel like we can't breathe. There can be pressure, constriction in the body. So where did the bubble bind come from? It came from the work of Gregory Bateson, and he had this way of defining that it was a dilemma that showed up in communication. You receive two different messages, and this can show up in our relationships, especially with our parents, who gave us like double messages. Like it can be very confusing for the nervous system. So for people during this time of COVID, where there's a bind, especially for pregnant moms who are receiving all these amazingly complex messages around what can I do, am I allowed to do? And I just did an interview with a midwife who's working in New York City, and she said she's a home birth midwife, and all of a sudden one night she got like 100 telephone calls for people looking for home births because of things that started to get set up in the hospital. So when we're working with the bind, this is what it can feel like. You know, you're damned if you do or you're damned if you don't. That's the feeling of a bind. So I wanted to name a couple of the binds that I've encountered in this COVID time. So I've had women consult with me. Like some people are like, well, how do I keep myself safe? Do I go out in the world? Do I food shop? Will I be safe if I do that? If I don't do that, how do I care for myself? So there's the feeling of a bind. For hospital births, there's always questions. Will my partner be allowed? Will I be allowed to be with my baby? Even in situations where we may even know the staff, there's this feeling of, is that person, if it come close to me because we've been given this 6-foot rule? I mean, there's a way that we don't feel safe now in the hospital. Or should I stay at home? Can I have a home birth? Will I have enough support? Do I know what that feels like? So these are some of the binds that I've encountered in talking with women. So what do you do? We do have ways of working with binds from the pre and perinatal perspective. The very, very first thing you do is you name the bind. And often there's two things are happening at once, right? Or there can be more, but just really slow the pace. See if you can name the bind. And it can even be hard to do that. So if I stay at home and not go food shopping, how do I care for myself? That's not good. I need food. But if I go out in the grocery store, I might endanger myself. I mean, these are some of the things I've had women talk to me about. So you can just feel like being able to name the bind. And for some people, they're like, well, I know I feel stuck. I feel that stuck place, but I'm not sure what the bind is. So the very, very first step is to name the bind. And that requires slowing down and looking around your room and seeing that there's nothing threatening happening here. And I can just feel a little bit, there's a little bit of shutdown happening. So I'm just going to invite everyone just make a fist and let it go. There you go, good. Make a fist, good, let it go. Make a fist and let it go. Yeah, good. And then just do a little stroking down the arm. Good. And then sort of squeezes into your legs. Feel your muscles and your bones. Feel that you're here just now. And a couple of sessions ago, I gave a little talk on autonomic first aid. And one of the questions is, what lets you know you're here just now? So just feel your body. If you're holding your baby, give your baby a squeeze and feel the weight of your baby on your chest or in your arms. Right. So the next step when dealing with bonds is you build positive state. You feel comfort, connection, and you notice your strengths and you feel your capacities. Like there are two moms that came on that had just gave birth. I mean, just feeling that you did that. Or if you're helping others, feel your accomplishment of creating the training programs that you have. Right, so there, good. I could feel warmth coming back in the space. Right, good. And oftentimes, if we feel a bind in the present, there can be binds that happened in our history that get kicked up. So one of the ways I do that is if you can just differentiate from that. With the hand on your chest, this is who you are now. Like I'm Kate, I'm 57 years old, and that was then, this is now. And the gesture of differentiation, it can't be, sometimes it's not right for everyone, but finding ways to, that was then, this is now, and honor your resilience. Appreciate something about yourself. Wow, I did that. I found my way through that. And the last thing that I've learned about a bind is that if you begin to explore what's good about each option as opposed to what's not working about each option, it's different. I learned this from Anna Chitty. And just begin to ask yourself questions like, what's good about staying home and not going shopping? What's good about shopping? And you just notice your body in the midst of that question. It's like, what is good as opposed to what's not? So when you spend time in the bind, other options arise. A third way will often arise, but I have found in the exploration of binds, more than one way can open. When we get into a bind, we get into a sort of a stuck, shut down space. But when you slow the pace and begin to explore the bind, more ways open. So I began to think about how can I help create a sense of a possibility for people in a bind during COVID. And I had this idea of virtual layers of support, or even if you have people in your space, what does it feel like? So creating sanctuary. You are the safe place for your baby. And my feeling with MotherCare is that we need to come around you and help you feel that way. Those of us who are helpers or who do this for a living, we need to come around you now. And so I have just wanted to lay out a couple of possibilities. One is feel yourself and then have your partner come around you and hold you. And really feel the holding. Because you are the world for the baby. If you have a baby on the inside, that's the baby. Then you are the layer of support. You're the world for your baby. And then allow someone to come around you and just hold. And if you have no partner, if you're by yourself, because I am with a lot of single moms right now, create some pillows around you or a chair, or some way of feeling like this is a layer. And you have to sort of work with a virtual feeling of who is the most loving woman or most loving man that you've ever met in your life, and bring that feeling in your body, like this person is here with me, holding me. And we have exercises we do pre and perinatal called layers of support, where we feel that person's hand on our back and someone else who's got their back. So who has your back? And in this story of the Great Mother, I have a midwife partner, and she said sometimes in the most difficult of labors, she would go in the bathroom and take a pause for herself and just imagine herself being held in the arms of the Great Mother.
Hi, Buck.
So I thought that about that idea about there is this Great Mother. Perhaps if there was a time to evoke her, she is here with us, and lay back in her arms. And then finally, I felt like to create this safety, there could be other ways of other people that could come in. I remember I checked in with Kusum from India, and she was saying the outpouring there of support has been so moving. And I agree, there are some beautiful things that are happening in the way people are helping. And honestly, I feel like our mothers are the most important people on the planet, and really helping them feel that sense of support and safety just now is our job. And then you can have your own routines that bring you comfort. And if you need someone to help you sort out the options, have them help you sort out what is the bind and what is good about each side, and see if there's options that arise naturally from inside of you. And then if you have early history, that's when you find a helper like myself, or there's quite a few people in our communities that are supporting pregnant moms or new moms. But it is a historical, like that was then, I had a bind, that was then. And find that edge of I'm present, that principle of choice that we did in the beginning. Early patterns can be harder because they're implicit and they're in our bodies, and we may not even know what happened in our cognitive brain, but it's in our body. So learning to really differentiate from our history is part of the plan. Okay, I'm going to stop and see. I just have a few minutes left because I have something else that I have to do at the top of the hour. But are there any questions? And just know that I'm recording this, so you can type them in the chat if you don't want to be seen. Can I elaborate on early patterns? Early patterns in pre-perinatal, this is what we learn. They start preconception, and then there can be ways that we come into form. So there can be patterns around our conception. There can be patterns from our lineage, from either side, in our father's line and in our mother's line, that can show up in our DNA. So our job, can create conditions for all the best possible outcome. The last frontier I have found that this model is making its appearance is in obstetrics, because we haven't really gotten there yet. But in many other places, we are aware, especially like in fetal medicine and other research organizations, we do know that babies have experiences in utero. And a lot of pregnancy support, postpartum support, are really big into relaxation and just working with mindfulness and stress. So babies can have experiences in utero, and some of them lie in mystery. We don't even know. Could have been something with the way made our body. It could have been something our parents went through while we were pregnant with us. It could be a dynamic that happened with our placenta. It could be that we felt stuck. Many babies at the end can often have a stuck place. And then there's the way we are born, and the way we are born matters. And that's the art of pre-perinatal somatic psychology. And big patterns can happen there, and with all the options. And it's not just what's overwhelming, it's also ecstatic and empowering. Being born is amazing. So, and birthing, for those of you who have had empowering births, know. But a lot of things can happen in that realm. And then there's afterbirth. We know now that babies need to be with their mothers, and that's optimal. And that's been hopeful and helpful in the last 10 years. We've seen big changes in mother and baby care at hospitals. But we know that separation is hard for babies. So that's in a nutshell, early patterns. But I've spent 20 years learning the patterns. So it's hard to put it into 5 minutes. And then Courtney, you asked, where did you say we could find the resources? I've created a module in my classroom where all the things I've taught, I've put up. Their handouts and stories, and the recordings from this are up there. I'll send you all that link, but it's in my school. I have an online school. It's a module that you can go in and harvest. It's free. But I'll start to feed the Facebook group as well and connect you all in that Facebook group. You can search for it. It's called MotherCare, and I will admit you, but I'll send you the link also. And then Neshe, who's one of our leaders in the world in pre-perinatal psychology, she's here. She says, any research about placenta that records the prenatal life for the baby like a black box? Oh, you want a resource? Yes. There's the Fetal Brain Institute, which is in part of the Children's Hospital in Washington, D.C. And I feel like that's where the newest research is. And we know that a lot of our neurodevelopmental challenges come from this very early time. And the placenta is this amazingly mighty place. I'm really believing much more now in the development of placenta and our relationship with placenta. So the Fetal Brain Institute, they, for me, are holding the latest research. So before I say goodbye to you, I just want to tell you, I have 1 minute. There was a couple that I helped care for who went into labor, and they progressed quite a while together until suddenly the labor stalled. And people got very excited, and you know how they get, like, oh, what are we going to do to jumpstart this labor? Oh, maybe we should prepare for a cesarean section. And this was this mom was in the water, it was a water birth, a big tub. And the dad said, hold on a second, I'm being called to this other meeting, but I'm going to finish the story. Hold on. The dad said, can we have a minute? Can I just call a pause? And can you all please just leave the room? So all the staff left, and he got in the tub with his partner. He got behind her and held her, like I've said about the 2 layers of support, finding someone to really come around you and hold you. And he began to massage her ear. And he just caressed her and massaged her ear. And in the pause and in the feeling of the layer of support, the labor picked up. And they went on to have a baby with no intervention. So I just wanted to tell you the story about the power of support and the power of pause and the power of creating boundaries and slowing the pace and taking your time in connection. I have to go, but I'll see you next week, and I'll create a space for us to ask questions and feel seen, heard, and felt on Facebook. Bye, everyone.